we go. This is the Individual Skills Hockey Podcast, a podcast that aims to bring quality education to youth hockey coaches, parents, and players with the mission of having a positive impact on the crazy youth hockey world. I'm your host, Miles Deeth, and I'm pretty excited about this episode. We have Ben Monahan sitting here in the studio live in person, and in a few moments we are going to be calling the East Grand Forks Youth Hockey Director, Judd Stauss. And East Grand Forks has always kind of intrigued me. I think for you too, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, they always seem to, everybody in the North seems to have, success with their youth programs and high school programs. And I think us in the cities always kind of maybe wonder how that works, why that is.
Yeah, with such small numbers producing high-end players and also having team success.
Yeah, I think the amount of D1 players that have come out of those programs up there with the limited, size of their youth program, I think is pretty impressive to say the least.
And I think East Grand does some cool things that are a little bit unique. So we're just excited to talk to Judd and get kind of the lay of the land up there and get his advice on some changes we should make maybe down in the metro. So all right, we are pleased to be joined by Judd Stauss. He's the youth hockey director. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that title up in East Grand Forks. Thanks for being here, Judd, and we're excited to talk to you.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. I'm excited for the podcast.
Hey, Judd. This is Ben Monahan here. We'll start off with a little icebreaker here to get everybody going. I know you attended the University of Denver. Played hockey there, is that correct?
That is correct.
Tell me how much money you maybe lost this last weekend when Denver was up at North Dakota and how the series ended up.
I'll tell you what, I didn't lose any money. I did two of my PB players bet me, and the bet was I had to wear a North Dakota jersey to Monday's practice, and they would have had to wear obviously a Denver jersey. Had the series went in Denver's favor, but lo and behold, in the locker room, they allowed me to pay them off, and it was for a very low amount. So they opened their mouth too quick, and I said done. So it ended up not being too bad. But the series was pretty good. North Dakota was certainly the better team on Friday night, Saturday night. It was a back and forth game, and obviously there was a 5-minute major in the third period that North Dakota's power play capitalized and certainly earned them the win.
Awesome. Glad you're able to have some fun with your team. That's pretty cool to do with them. Hey, like Miles had said, East Grand Forks is a unique youth association as maybe a lot of the associations in the North. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your role within East Grand Forks Youth Hockey, and then how the association is run with the city involved?
Yeah, and it is definitely a unique, I guess, call it association, but we're really not an association because the unique part is that we're city run, and I don't believe that there are many programs left in Minnesota, if any, that are run by the city. So I guess we don't really call ourselves an association. We're just a city run hockey program, and I guess if you were to call it a title, it would be development coordinator or director.
All right, so I'm 0 for 1 on the correct title there, but that's all right.
It's all right. And how long have you been actively involved in that role, Judd? How long have you been involved with East Grand Forks Youth Hockey?
I helped out. It was years ago back, probably in 2008, 9, and 10, when there was a group coming up that some of the parents, coaches asked me to help out a little bit on the defensive side of the game. And that was prior to when my kids were born. So after that, I took a break or whatever, but started back up probably in about 2013. I think my oldest boy then started that middle of that winter, and so ever since then I've been involved, kind of came up the ladder, starting in termites.
And I suppose we should, Miles, while we're here, probably let Judd make a comment about last night. I believe there was a big game in town last night.
East Grand Forks and Moorhead. Warroad.
Warroad.
Yeah.
East Grand
Warroad.
Forks Warroad. Judd, why don't you tell us about that game quickly and what the atmosphere is like for an East Grand Forks Warroad game?
Honestly, the atmosphere last night, as I've told many people, was the best in the largest crowd I've seen at a high school game, other than a section final game that I've ever been a part of in East Grand Forks. So Warroad traveled very well last night, and obviously, we had a lot of fans from East Grand Forks, and there were fans from Grand Forks. So the atmosphere and the excitement in the arena was awesome, and the game certainly didn't let us down. It was a great game overall. I think it was, Warroad went up 1-0. We went up or tied them up 1-1 and went up 2-1. And it seemed like every time we'd score, they came back the next shift and score. So they tied it up right away 2-2. And then in the third, we went up 3-2, and boom, just like that, next shift they tied it up 3-3. And we're just like peepers sitting there. And then finally, I don't know, 8 minutes left, 7 minutes left. I don't remember what it was, but we were able to score one goal to go up 4-3, and then another goal, a few minutes later, and that kind of, I guess, took a little pressure off the guys, and then ended up with an open net with a minute or so to go. So overall, it was a great high school hockey team against two very, very good teams, very good programs. Both of them obviously hate to lose, and fortunately, East Grand Forks was able to come out there with the win last night.
That's awesome. I wanted to ask about, I'm sure you had a lot of youth players in attendance at the game. Do you guys do anything special with getting them out to the games, as far as making sure that they might not have events during that conflict with those high school games, or anything that ties into the youth?
Yeah, most certainly. Our scheduler does a great job with the, whether it's a boys game or a girls game. We never practice during a boys game, so we try to get our practices, if it's your day, out of the way before the games start, and vice versa. If the girls are playing, the girls won't practice during a girls game. So our youth hockey is always encouraged, and they never have a conflict with hockey anyway that wouldn't allow them to go to the game. And last night was even better. It was fan appreciation night, so that was certainly helpful, as well as the termites played in between the first and second period. So that obviously creates some more fans and some excitement with the little guys out there skating around.
That's so cool.
So hey Judd, kind of the way East Grand Forks works when it comes to like their decision making. Do you have a committee in place? So obviously, in the cities, you have boards, you have hockey operations committees, things like that. Does East Grand Forks have that? And if so, tell us a little bit about that committee, or who sits on it, or how the decision making. Don't tell us the details of the decision making yet, because those will come up in questions later. But just how does that committee work, operate, and is there one?
Well, I guess first off, there really isn't a committee. We're run by like I said, by the city. We have a park and recreation superintendent. He's in charge technically of the hockey program. We have a recreation director who he oversees the hockey program, does all the scheduling, does all the whether it's scheduling for games, tournaments, as well as arena scheduling. And he's probably our go-to as far as if we have questions, changes, anything that we feel as a program that we need to improve on. And when big decisions come about, it's not just one or two people, or it's usually a group, whether it's our high school coach, myself, tenured coaches. We've involved the high school AD who has a great hockey background as well, at University of North Dakota. So typically it's a group of people that have been around for a long time, that know the game, that have studied the game, that have done research, on development, research on, the decisions that we're making, to just make sure that, obviously we're hopefully making the right decision for the best of our program.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up on that. I guess, do you find that you're able to make some of the minor decisions throughout the year a little bit faster than if comparing to association with a 12 to 14, 16 person board? kind of signing off on everything and getting bogged down in kind of the red tape, do you find that you're able to change and adapt faster with your kind of small group there?
Obviously I don't know what it's like to be in one of those bigger associations, but I understand, I get it. There's boards, there's, like you said, there's members of up to probably 16 members that you have to go through. So, honestly, I would say that, yes, it's probably quite a bit easier and less painful in our situation where, we don't have as many people, I guess, to go through. But at the same time, it's always thought out, and there's always a reasoning behind it. We don't just go in and say, okay, let's do this today because we feel like it. There's always some statistics. There's a lot of statistics behind the stuff we do. There's a lot of reasoning, a lot of thinking, a lot of reaching out to many different people, organizations. It could be USHL coaches, it could be college coaches, it could be who knows, depending on what the situation is, just to get opinions and make sure that obviously we're making the right decision for our kids.
Nice.
Awesome. Hey, Judd, so let's just role play here for fun of it and say that you are a hockey operations director in the cities, and we won't use Wayzata as an example as that's the arena we're sitting in, but just...
And also the guy that is in that role across the table from you.
that is Miles' role, actually, and I'm a former hockey operations director for a large association, but let's say you are a lead of a hockey operations committee in the cities. Would you implement the same things that you have been doing in East Grand Forks in the cities? And if so, do you think it would be successful as well?
The easy answer is 100% I would. There'd be no doubt that I would try to do exactly or close to what we're doing. Having said that, it's not easy. I understand that. I get that. But I would do my best to try to figure out a way. And, I think there are ways. I know ice time obviously is probably the biggest issue, as well as conflicts with different people and what they think, what their beliefs are. But you have to have thick skin. You have to be prepared to take some heat and stand by what you believe in. And obviously the support is key, right? You need to have support. It can't just be yourself. This isn't a me thing, it's a we thing. And there's numerous people within our organization that believe in what we're doing. And that helps. But if it were just me, just say coming to, wherever it is down in the cities, if it would be the only way, Ben, that I would do it. I would never do it any other way. And I believe so much in it, and the statistics and the ice time, the ice touches, the work to rest ratio practices, the games, the smaller games, the half ice games and squirts. There's just so many positives that come out of it. And, the studying the research that we've done, like I said before, it's not just you wake up one day and say, okay, let's just do it this way. It's a lot of research, and quite honestly, a lot of our program is based off of Finland and Sweden, and that those two countries over there are the top producing countries in hockey, or hockey players per registered youth players, and quite honestly, it's not even close. So we've looked long and hard at what they're doing, why they're doing, how they're doing it, and we try to implement as many things from over there as that we can.
I love that. Just kind of a random question here that's going to lead into my next one. How many squirts do you have this year?
We have 44 skaters and 4 goalies.
Okay, so that ends up being 3 teams or 4?
We have 4 teams.
Okay.
Our teams are always small.
And the reason I asked that is, like, if you're trying to get across a certain concept of getting coaches on board with more small area games of practice, or a certain way we're going to develop stick handling skill, basically, and I'm not making an excuse for myself here, Wayzata with 10, 11 squirt teams, is like you only have to get 4 coaches on board to implement that stuff, whatever it is. And I think that's the biggest difficulty here is just it's just more people that you have to convince of changes that you want to make. Would you agree with that?
Yes and no. The 4 coaches, I don't. I guess we have 12 square coaches. So
right, yeah.
And they're all they're all parents. Okay, we don't have one non-parent coach, within our square program. So the belief and the trust starts down in termites, right? Like that's where we start this whole process. And these coaches, go through the process in termites. They go through it in mites. They come to squirts. They already know the process. It's very similar structure, especially from mites to squirts. So you're kind of eliminating the skepticism or whatever you want to call it, because you've already been there, right? These coaches are trained. They know how to do it. We couldn't do it without them. All the 12 squirt coaches that we have. So once we get to squirts, it's just another year, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of on autopilot at that point.
It is at this point. Not to say when you start at the first year, when we did it back in 2019 and 20, it was a battle. There's no question. So it wasn't easy at that time, and the group that went from playing full ice the whole year, then all of a sudden they had to go back to half ice, their second year of squirts, those coaches and those players, it was tough. So, yeah, that was hard, but we stuck by it. We didn't budge. We just stuck to the process, and quite honestly, we told them in April, and they had all summer or spring, summer, and fall to think about it, and it all worked out in the end. And we're 5 years down the road now, and it's pretty much seamless. So yes, at the beginning it's tough, it's hard, but if you start the process down at termites and you stick to it and you have your progressions as you get older, I think it's pretty seamless, honestly.
Cool.
And hey, Judd, so kind of to piggyback off what Miles is talking about there about trying to get coaches on board, that's obviously when he's saying 11 teams, 3-4 coaches, that's 40 coaches just at the squirt level alone, and other large associations in the cities, whatnot. But when you implement new ideas or you bring things in, how is it received? So for instance, PEP is something you guys do there, and in the cities when I was a hockey director at St. Michael, we had PEP, and I'm a big believer of it, and the teams that would buy into it saw the benefit, but there was definitely not buy-in from everybody. How was PEP received from your community, your youth program, and now that you've been doing it, how would you say that it's impacted your program overall? And did everybody buy in right away, or did it take time?
Why don't we just define what PEP is for those that don't know?
Perfect. Have at it.
Yeah. So you can start with that and then answer Ben's question.
Yeah, PEP is basically just a skill development tool that apparatus that we put out on the ice, which has a stick and it's kind of mimicked off of 2 feet, and your stick zone, if you're standing with your feet shoulder width apart and your stick is down on the ice, there's an area, the triangle, where you can place the puck through. So basically, it's just a skill development tool that we implemented 5 years ago or so, and it's Power Edge Pro, based off from Joe Quinn, who trained Connor McDavid when he was a kid, and he's obviously their ambassador. And I think we were the first program in Minnesota to get PEP, and since we've got it, I know there's numerous programs around the state that have jumped on board. But to answer your question, was it a battle right away? Absolutely. Number one, one of the hardest things was learning it. I went out to Toronto before we had already got it, but I shouldn't say got it. We'd already agreed to get it, but I went out to train out there, and I was just spinning in circles, wondering how in the world we were going to make this work, because it looked so complicated the first time you stepped out on the ice. But having been through it for that week and then obviously bringing it home, they came and trained us, and then implementing it like we did the first year. There was certainly growing pains with coaches, with coaches who did believe, who didn't believe, but ultimately, we weren't perfect our first year, and we've made adjustments, throughout the years to make sure that kids, coaches, goalies, players, didn't get bored with the process, but we still have pep night every Monday night, and whether we call it skills night now, so we don't call it pep night, but the adjustments, we're on the ice for an hour and 15. Every group they're all together. So all the Bantams are together, all the sports TVs, nights. We all practice together and go through our pep circuits or whatever it is for that night, if it's a station-based pep practice or circuit-based pep practice, and then we end with small area games. So right now, again, just like our, I refer to our squirt program. I think our pep program it's seamless. Everybody knows it. We start introducing it as early as termites, and when I say introducing it, we just set one out there, or two out there, or five out there, just so they see them. They jump over them. They don't, do anything really with them. Maybe they'll put a puck underneath them if they can, but at least so when they get to mites, they know what a pep looks like, and that's when we really start implementing the training tools, the skills of pep with our program.
And what were some of the most common pushbacks to it? I would assume it would fall along the lines of like some nervousness that kids aren't going to learn how to play a full ice game when they actually get to their games and stuff like that, or and how did you address them?
I don't know if it was that so much. Are you talking with pep?
Yeah. Just
yeah.
like the main pushbacks on it.
It was mainly from the older, the old school coaches who, always are afraid of change, right? Like we have that all over Minnesota. Something new comes out, something new is whether it's designed as an apparatus on the ice or a new way of training, a new way of teaching, hockey. There's stubbornness, and I think that was our biggest issue was the stubbornness. And it's hard, like these kids, like especially like the Bantam kids, because they've never had it, and so they're learning at an age where it's harder. And we did it with our high school kids. That was those same years, and it was ugly. And so their attitudes and their work ethic and their dedication to trying to get better with pep was difficult. Whereas you take a mite, you take the younger kids who are just starting to learn it, and those mites are now second year peewees, and they get mad if we don't do pep. Like they're like, why aren't we doing pep tonight? So the attitudes and the willingness to do it and to get better, from the kids who started back down at the mite level compared to the kids at the that just got it as a high school player or as a Bantam or as a first year Bantam, second year Bantam, it was hard and it was difficult. And, some people just don't believe in throwing an apparatus on the ice that'll allow a kid to get better. Myself personally, I think it's one of the best things we've ever added to our program. It's just again, you have to have thick skin, and you have to stick to the process, and you just don't deviate. You don't necessarily give options, and quite honestly, if you don't believe in it and you don't want to teach it, then maybe you shouldn't be coaching.
So Judd, I would completely agree. I mean, like when we had it at St. Michael, I bought into it. Our coaching staff bought into it. And we did it regularly every week that we had it. I think we tried to do it on Monday nights as well. With the amount of teams we had, we couldn't always do every team Monday nights. You didn't always have it, but we would see the lower level teams in particular go against it or go away from it because they came off of a tournament and they couldn't do a breakout, or they couldn't execute that neutral zone trap or whatever you want to call it. So we got kickback from the lower level teams always because they didn't think their teams needed to work on that kind of stuff. And so what I'm getting to is, with your programs there, knowing that you have a squirt and I think you have a peewee as well, do you run your levels stuff, or is it like team by team coaches run it? How does that work with running the your skill nights that you call it?
Yeah. No, our skill night is and I know there's with larger programs it's hard, but I know there's ways to probably manipulate it and do it. But we're fortunate where we only have one Bantam group, one Pee Wee group, one Squirt group, one Mite group that go through our skill night this year because of just how numbers have worked. So all of our teams are always together on Monday nights regardless. So we don't have that coach that comes in and is worried about his breakouts or the power play or whatever it be. It's non-negotiable that Monday night is a skill development night, whether it's 70% pep and 30% some other skill development stuff that we do before we turn it to smaller games. So there is no option really, and it's there's no argument with it either. Like everybody, it's been around for, like I said, this the 5th year now, and it's not where coaches and or players want to deviate from that process on Monday nights, because Monday nights it's a skill night, and that's just what it is, and there's no, I guess there's no way around it.
Yeah. We have a Monday night skill night here at Wayzata with our high school coaching staff that runs skill development. We don't use PEP, but it's a lot of skating, a lot of puck skills, a lot of stick skills. So I think that stuff is great. I wanted to move on to something that I think makes your program there pretty unique across the state of Minnesota. So I wanted you to describe how your squirts work through kind of when they start up and tryouts and everything like that.
Sure. Okay, so as I was talking before, and I'll start with our termites, right? We have a progression with our termites. We play 1/6 of the ice. When we do, they have their little Saturday morning scrimmages. They skate for a half hour and then they do their scrimmages. So they're playing on 1/6 of the ice. Maybe at the end of the year, we'll progress with our termites to cross ice. So blue line or top of the circle cross ice game. When these kids get to mites, they're playing cross ice games the whole year, and we call it like their candy at the end of the year. In fact, this weekend they have a jamboree, so they get to play half ice. So that's kind of their excitement, their end of the year, like I said, candy that they get to enjoy the half ice games. And then so when we get to our squirts, obviously that program is a bit different, and yes, it's based around half ice games, in-house half ice games. Also, we all practice together. So like we said earlier, we have 44 squirts skaters, we have 4 goalies. The majority of our practices are always together, especially from, we start our clinics, middle of October, and then our regular season starts probably right around, November 1st or so. So those teams are always, or those kids are always practicing together. And within that, we create our in-house teams. And of those in-house teams, we play half ice up until January 1st. And then January 1st is when we will, and when I say we split to full ice, we don't play our full ice games until January 15th. But USA Hockey makes you have your rosters in by January 1st. So we might have another half ice weekend, the first week of January, and then obviously the second or third weekend, whatever it ends up being, we'll go to our full ice games. But within that whole process, the coaches, like I said, we have 12 coaches. So we're evaluating from day one is how it works. There's no December 15th time where, okay, we're gonna have a tryout. The tryout starts, basically November 1st, when all the coaches are out there, and you just, we start putting kids into groups based upon, talent. That's something we do, termites, mites, and squirts as well. They're always placed with of-like talent, and we just see how that rolls with them, throughout the practices, throughout the in-house games, and then, coaches will rank the kids, depending on, again, teams and where we need to split that number. Some years it's 1 to 15, some years it's 1 to 25, but kids will be ranked, and then based off those rankings, that's how our teams are picked. and it's, this is again our 5th year, I believe, in our sport program, and it's worked out great. We have not had, I don't think, really any complaints as far as how the teams are picked. It seems to work, pretty well. And most importantly, these coaches, they put in a ton of time, and their input is as valuable as anybody's. So it's good that they all get to have a say. And honestly, the votes go to our superintendent, and he spits out a spreadsheet, and that's how our teams are picked.
That's cool. So prior to January 1st, those in-house teams, are they completely equal across like 4 equal teams based on kind of your early evaluations of the kids?
Honestly, that process changes every year. And we do play Grand Forks sometimes. We come across, play some half ice games. And, depending on the year, depending on the time of year, depending on our, as coaches, trying to keep excitement going within the group, we do different things. For instance, this year we picked, I think there was 2 captains for every team, right? And then we threw the sticks in the middle. And so the sticks in the middle, we just have the coach go throw sticks, and then I think we let the kids make trades, right? You can make one trade. And we did that for probably 2 or 3 weeks. The kids absolutely loved it.
Yeah, that's pretty fun for the kids, yes, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the biggest thing. And, you got to keep it fun. You got to keep them excited. And we always keep them on our toes because the teams change, all the time. We have reversible jerseys. We have 4 teams. So, we can change teams on the same day if we need to. And that's where we've kind of evolved. Our first year we had, set teams for 2 or 3 weeks, and it got a little stale, and we just kept trying to, change the process a little bit to make sure that the kids stay engaged. And, within those games, you asked earlier, the team's equal, and we try to make them equal. But what else we do is, like, let's just say we have 10 kids per team, or it's 9. So within those teams, we'll always match, just say it's our top 5 kids on each team. They'll always go out against each other. And then, your lesser 5 will go against each other. So it's a minute and 30 horn. Puck stays where it's at. There's no face-offs, goals. There's no face-offs, and they just go. There's certain rules. They got to take the puck behind the net, and after they score, after a save, they got to call check up, or at center of ice if they're going to go forecheck again after a goal. And then, like I said, if the horn blows, then it's a new group of 8 or 10 kids that come out and of like talent that will battle the next minute and a half.
So Judd, I think you're talking to 2 guys here that have the same philosophy, same beliefs. I surely try to implement a lot of the same things you're talking about. When I was a hockey operations director, I know Miles has the same type of philosophy as well. I go back to the question about would you do things the same? Put yourself standing in a room with 15 hockey operations directors. I know you have kids that play in the Blades, so I know you know what the city's kind of is like and goes through. But if you implement the half ice structure, in the cities that, say, an Andover program or whatever it might be, how do you think that's received, and how would you go about trying to do that? And then would you be concerned about how many kids would just go to Minnesota Made and just try and get through the growing pains and show that there's proof and that the system works, or how would that work? As you know, Minnesota Made down here is huge in mites and squirts, and parents think that it's full ice games. And Miles and I always joke to each other that hockey is the only sport that plays on the same size of rink at the age of 9 or 10 as the NHL players do. Not any other sport out there does that at that age. So just curious to hear what advice you would give to hockey operations directors down here trying to implement that squirt model.
It's a great question, or great question, and how I would do it, Ben. It's not easy, as you mentioned, Minnesota Made. I know that's one of the issues down there. If I were to be perfectly honest with you, I think it's Minnesota. I think it's a Minnesota hockey problem as well. I think they are a bit too, or way too lenient on the process of skill development. I think we went backwards this year with the mite process and allowing, full ice games. I would like to see it personally come down from the state to implement something like this, where we're solely focusing on skill development. We're developing these kids, like Marty St. Louis has said, when the old school way is to teach a kid how to play hockey, right? The new school way is to teach a kid the skills, how to shoot, how to pass, how to turn, how to use their edges, so they can play hockey when they get older. And that's what most people don't understand, is that we're trying to teach these kids, we're trying to give these kids the skills so they can play hockey when they're 16, 17, 18, and not be one of those kids who are left behind and aren't able to, whether it's make the junior varsity and have to play, junior gold or something like that. And it's hard. Like, I get it down there, and people look at you like you're crazy. And I have people, when I do come down there for spring hockey, and that one father made the comment, like, what do your kids think, like, when they don't get to play real hockey? And I'm like, what? I get offended right away. And I'm like, what do you mean real hockey? I said, this is real hockey. This is why it's real hockey. This is how it's real hockey. And again, we're not worried about our kids, being the Wayne Gretzky at 8 or 9 years old, 10 years old. We're worried about how good they are when they're 15 and 16, 17, 18 and beyond high school, hopefully. So, I know the question is tough. The results, I guess if it were me, and coming down there and having to implement something like this, I would strictly use our results, right? Like, it would be pretty easy for me to show what we've done, how we've done it, where these kids have came out with our squirt program when they did hit full ice or do hit full ice after Christmas or after the middle of January, and then ultimately where some of these kids maybe are skill wise with their peers around Minneapolis, but it's an uphill battle, as you guys know. But having said that, we were down at the Minnesota hockey convention, I think in September, and they put one of the lectures, or what do you want to call it, the things was about our squirt program, and there was a lot of good feedback, or a lot of good questions, a lot of good programs that want to implement it, a lot of good emails after. But most of those programs were, from the outskirts of Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't the Minnetonkas or the Edinas, Wazetas. It was like Mankato's and certain programs outside the metro area where, things are a bit easier.
Well, I think you hit it on the head right
tough.
away when you said that you wish it would come down for Minnesota hockey, because I don't know if you've listened to any of these in the past, but Miles and I actually did one kind of about the squirt game count and game counts in general, and I'm a firm believer that 35 is plenty enough, if not too much at the squirt age, but how after squirts it just kind of goes to a free-for-all for Pee-wees and Bantams. And as you know, up north it's different for you, but in the cities there's Pee-wee and Bantam teams that are playing 65, 70 games when the season's over. So
yeah, I wanted to ask about that. You said your squirts start playing full ice games, January 15th. How many full ice games do they get in for the season?
Generally, it's about 20 to maybe 25.
Okay.
I think our squirt black team so far has played 12, 13 maybe. So it depends on how good the teams do it, but maybe Squirt International or the tournament we were down in Minneapolis. So you might add a game or two, with those results. But typically we try to for sure get over 20, but definitely under 25.
Yeah. So less than the limit,
goal.
Less than the limit that's imposed by the state. So
we're all about practice.
I just wanted to follow up on your one comment about people saying that your son doesn't get to play real hockey up there. And it's like, if you watch a 10-year-old against 10-year-old game, Edina versus Wayzata, like at Squirt A, it's like, that's not real hockey either. Like a full ice game yet. No. Like it's, in my opinion, like real hockey doesn't start until like 14, 15 U. So yeah.
There's no question.
Yeah.
No question. And that's the hard thing. And that's, it doesn't matter who you are or where you are, like you still have those same issues. Like real hockey, they think is a full ice game. And, unfortunately we don't have enough people that believe like we do, that the ice rink has to be condensed, and the players have to make hockey plays. And you look at Sweden, and then I go back to Sweden and Finland a lot. And they implemented a new program, and I'm not sure if they stuck with it or not for sure, but they were doing at U12, 13 and 14, they were playing cross ice for their games. Not even games; they were that was their new test model.
Yeah,
as far as
I read that really long study. I think it was like a 2019 or 2020 big study.
Yeah.
I think
exactly.
we're gonna do an episode detailing that whole thing. So
there was a USA Hockey guy I remember about 5-6 years ago told me the only reason we do so many full ice games at Squirts is for the parents. That if it was USA Hockey's way, it would just be half ice, cross ice games at Squirts, but they know it's for the parents, and you'd probably have those black market programs start up like Minnesota made, and they'd pop up all over the place. So, anyways,
I agree. I think that's the problem.
Yeah. All right. Well, we can move on. We just have a couple more for you. Don't want to keep you too long. Thanks again for doing this. This is awesome. I wanted to ask about. Obviously, East Grand Forks has produced a lot of high-end players over the last 5, 10, 15 years. What do you contribute that to, coming from such kind of a small starting base and being able to produce Division I talent?
It's a good question. I think, first and foremost, it's going to come down to ice time, right? We have we have 3 rinks. We have a population of 9,000. So we have a lot of ice. I think, you're talking in the last 10 years, obviously our process, is a lot different 10 years ago than it is now. But having said that, it still has produced Division I hockey players, which is great. But the process, as I said before, it starts at termites. I look now, from our kids going now, and I think our kids honestly get so many touches from termites to mites to squirts, even through peewees, where we're not focusing on breakouts. We're not focusing on the systems of the game. We're focused on skill development. I think in the future, and even kids that are at our high school level who have got some of this training, not as much as our younger kids, but I think that's gonna play a role in why the kids are at the level they're at. But ultimately, it's we're a hockey community. We take a lot of pride in our program, take a lot of pride in our coaching, take a lot of pride in getting the kids on the ice and hopefully doing things the right way. And it honestly comes down to practice, right? Like you mentioned before, some of these teams, the QE teams and whatnot, are playing 60, 70 games. Bantam, same thing, and the practice to playing ratio is way off in that
correct
in that scheme. So our practice to play ratio is completely opposite of that. And kids get better at practice. Obviously, their games are fun time. Hopefully, time where we can see things that we need to work on, see things that we're good at, see things that the kids are good at, and maybe go back the next week, and whether it's on Monday night, maybe we got to work on focus on shooting more. We got to focus on something here or there more. And I just think it's the buy-in too. Is the buy-in from high school all the way down to termites. Our high school coach is very, very involved, and I think the communication between that level all the way down to our termite level makes us unique in the sense where we all get along, we all believe in the same process, we don't deviate from that process, we trust it, and with that type of camaraderie, I think it really helps us out.
Hey Judd, how many days a week are you've mentioned termites a lot, that's where everything starts. How many days a week are your termites on the ice, and your mites on the ice, and your squirts, like the 3 youngest levels? How many days a week do they get ice touches?
So our termites are on twice a week. They're on Tuesdays and Saturdays with probably 1 or 2 open hockeys. Our squirts our mites are probably on the average of 4 days a week. would be our mites, and then our squirts are on, I would say, an average of 5.5 days a week, probably.
Okay.
Some days it's 6, some days it's 5, and our peewees
But when you mentioned
were
the
on
mites
too
are on
much.
4 days a week, you had said, and even with your termites, how many of those are on the ice with structure versus a non-structure type setting?
What do you mean by structure and non-structure?
I guess like you had said, open hockey. So the termites were on the ice
Oh.
twice a week, but then they also have open hockey opportunities.
Yep.
So in the cities, we don't have that option of the open hockey. So when you say twice a week and then you say twice for open hockey, explain kind of what that is, and then at the mites, is it the same where they have 2 to 3 practices a week with the coaches running drills, but then they also have 2 days where they could just go play open hockey?
Gotcha. Yeah. So our termites will have 1 to 2 open hockeys with 2 structure-based practices. Our mites will have, I would say, like I said, 4 structure-based, either practices or cross-ice games, and then they'll have 1 or 2 open hockeys a week, and the same thing with our squirts. So they'll have, at least 5 practice or 5 ice touches a week. Not all practices, but they might be half ice games on Friday night, half ice games Sunday morning. Practice on Saturday. So, but they're all structured, so to speak, with an open hockey, maybe 1 or probably 1. Termites, I think, might get 2, but I think the rest of the program is around 1, and it's changing a little bit even now with outdoor ice, but this is not the season for outdoor ice, so it didn't work out as good as we wanted it to this year with more open ice, but
How
can't
many
control Mother Nature.
how many mites do you have, and then how many Bantams do you have? I'm just curious to see the difference in those two numbers.
Yeah, our mites are at about 33, I think, and our Bantam 33, skaters and goalies 33 to 35. Our Bantams are at 30 with 3 goalies, 30 skaters, 3 goalies.
So
I might be off by a number.
Yeah,
but
so that's really interesting to me that you have not very much fall off from their 6, 7, 8 years of youth hockey. Not many kids are giving up the game up there.
yeah, that's true. We don't. Occasionally, yeah, a player will decide to, they don't want to play anymore, but for the most part, if there are kids that decide to quit, normally it's between their Bantam years in high school.
Yeah.
That's when maybe we'll see a kid or 2 drop off, but for the most part, during youth hockey, our numbers stay pretty good.
That's really cool.
Hey, Judd, just I think maybe one more question here or two. We'll let Miles kind of wrap it up then. Again, joined here by Judd Stauss, development coordinator. Did I get that one right, Judd?
Yep.
For East Grand Forks? Perfect. I just had to make sure I outdid Miles on this. So recently you guys chose to go AA at the Bantam and Pee Wee level, and you see that amongst other single A high school teams, Matamidi, for instance, Hermantown, maybe some others out there that I don't know about, but you guys chose to do that. I think last year was your first year. Talk to us about maybe the thought process to why you chose to do that, and then at the same time, maybe sort of any behind-the-scenes talks about East Grand Forks looking to do that at the high school level when this group of AA players comes up to high school.
Sure. Yeah, to go back to the AAA conversation we had, we had that conversation a few years back, winters back, I suppose, before we chose to ultimately, move to AA. And again, it goes back to a lot of research, a lot of reaching out to people who know the game and seen us play and have watched our program or heard about our program, and just to want to make sure that we're, again, making the right decisions, based upon what we have. And we looked at our it was our junior class right now. We looked at their youth hockey numbers playing A hockey, and went through and their win-loss record for, versus an A school. I think they were around 95 or 96-5 against A schools, in their 4-year career, at Pee Wee and Bantam level. And I think of those 5 losses or 6 losses, whatever it was, 5 of them were to the same team. And then we did the same thing with their double A, them playing double A schools, and they were somewhere around 40-15 against double A schools in their 4-year, career, or whatever you want to call it, youth career at the double A level, or A level, I should say. And we obviously we saw that, number one, they were, pretty successful at the A level. They won state championships at the Bantam level back-to-back. The Pee Wee team would have probably won, good chance they'd have won state, as Pee Wees, unfortunately, COVID, took that year out for them. And then we looked at the Pee Wees as well, that won the state championship at the A level. Looked at that group of kids and what their record was. I think they were like 65 or something, 67-2, and 25-4 roughly against double A schools. So, we look at it, we do some talking, we look around, and not to be, I don't want to say like arrogant, but at the same time, like, our kids weren't getting pushed, they weren't losing, right? Like, I think it's important for kids to lose. They got to learn to hate to lose to really figure out what it takes to win. Winning always isn't easy, and I don't think our kids were getting challenged enough, or we didn't think our kids were getting challenged enough. And it's one thing, you can play a double A schedule, for some of your games. You still have to hit your A schools. But ultimately, when it comes down to it, and you guys know as well as I do, that when you get into a section championship, or you get into a region championship or region tournament, everything changes. Like, it's all ramped up, gets harder, and teams are always bringing, or trying to bring their best. And ultimately, at those situations, we have to struggle. Like, we gotta learn how to play in tight games. We gotta learn how to win a tight game and beat a top tier team. And we just didn't feel that those kids were getting pushed at necessarily the region level, and maybe even sometimes at the state level at the in the A class. And we did some, like I said, a lot of research, and we needed to make sure that as coaches, as a program, we can figure out what their weaknesses are, getting them exposed to a top tier team, and maybe getting beat 5-6-1, and maybe we got to come back and work on our edges. We got to work on our shooting. We got to work on our passing. And when you go in and win games 6, 7, 8, 1 every weekend, it's kind of like, what do we go back and do at practice?
Yeah, bad habits creep up.
Bad habits, and you ultimately, when it gets to high school, as you know, Mitch, like, it's a totally different ballgame. When you mix 3 classes, or sometimes a fourth and a freshman or two, it changes, and it's tough. It's a lot tougher, and it's not like youth hockey. So
yeah, again,
we're trying to prepare our kids for the high school level and hopefully beyond as much as possible. And by creating a challenge, or certainly a lot bigger challenge for them at the youth hockey level, who knows, maybe it makes 10 kids in the summer say, you know what, our chances to go to state this year are nearly as good as they were last year, because now we got to get through Moorhead, Duluth East, Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
Now maybe they'll put a little bit more extra work in to hopefully achieve that goal at the double A level.
Yeah, I love it. All right, I think we've covered everything we could in a reasonable amount of time. So again, we really appreciate it. The main thing I want to get across in listening to you talk is I think there's a lot of perception out there that people ask, why is East Grand Forks so successful, and people kind of write it off as they play outside all the time, or they just drop the puck and let them play pond hockey. And it's like, all of your answers today have been so well thought out, and you can tell that there's a lot of research that goes behind it. And the other thing I wanted to get across and make sure that people listen to is, some of this stuff can be done all over the state and all over the country, and there's no reason why, just because you're a bigger association or you're in a different geographic location, you can't start to implement some of this stuff. So again, thank you. Ben, you got anything else for him?
No, Judd, thanks for coming on. We appreciate your time and taking time out of your day here midday to join us. So we appreciate it, and we certainly in the cities applaud what you guys do up there. And again, it goes to a lot of the northern programs, right? I mean, just the amount of talent that the northern teams produce year after year with a smaller pool size is extremely impressive. But what you guys do and is certainly something that the city's people that love hockey do take note of and look at. And, we appreciate your time coming on and sharing your insights to things.
No, I appreciate it, guys. And thanks again for having me on. And I always enjoy talking hockey. It's one thing I'm comfortable doing. So anytime. And I, again, appreciate your guys' time and wish you guys the best.
Yep. If you're ever down here in the cities, we could connect and continue this conversation.
Come watch any Wayzata Minnetonka game or something. Miles will get you in.
There you go.
Thanks, Judd.
All right. Thanks a lot. See ya.
Thank you, guys. See ya.
All right. Again, we were so lucky to have Judd Stauss call in to the podcast today and talk East Grand Forks hockey. So many interesting things that they do. And what I didn't realize, and I said it on the call, and when I thank Judd, it's like this stuff is so well thought out and researched. And I think, like I said, people just kind of say, well, they have hockey tradition up there, and that's why they're good. And it's like, well, no, they've been working really hard at this and making the best possible case for these kids and giving them the best opportunity to succeed, and I think it's really cool.
Well, and you can tell they put a lot of time into it, like you said, but also a financial backing as well. As he mentioned, he went to Toronto to learn about one of their on ice skills clinics or devices that they utilize with that PEP. I don't know if there's many programs in the cities that are sending somebody to Toronto to learn more about that. And just like you said, the research of Finland and Sweden, and certainly a lot of time put in it by him and the entire community up there to do their best to produce quality hockey players.
Do you have anything you wanted to?
I mean, just a couple of things that I jotted down. I think that people, in the cities, again, it is different up there versus down here, right? And I think a lot of people, hockey-wise, would agree. And I think sometimes the decision makers and maybe our ice availability prevents us from doing it. But he talked about the small sizes. It was something that I was a big believer of as a hockey director in St. Michael.
Small sizes of the ice?
Of the teams.
Of the teams.
So, like at squirts, I think he said, what'd they say, 44 skater squirts, and they have
4 teams.
You right away said 3 teams, and he said no, 4. So, again, I think, in fact, the district I think I'm sitting in might have a rule that you have to have 15 players on a squirt team. I'm not sure if that still exists or not.
Nope, that's not a rule. We have
not Wayzata. I'm just talking about District 3.
No, we have 13
okay.
on our squirt teams.
So I think a lot of I know we had 10 or 11 on our squirt teams, and that's something that I would recommend to people is have the lower roster sizes. Don't be worried about I think a lot of people always think, well, what if a kid or two is sick and I only got 9? They're 9 to 10 years old. Just go play hockey. I mean,
and also if you have 11 or 10 on a team, you can have 3 teams on the ice.
Correct.
They have 44 kids
on the ice
every practice.
Yeah,
every single practice.
And down here, we want our own ice for our own squirt teams. So again, that was something else we did was we would do small sizes and we do 3-team practices because the kids are all doing the same thing. So
because the smaller teams and more teams, the pushback is going to be, well, where are we going to get our ice time? There's an extra team that's gobbling up all these hours. Well, 3 teams on the sheet.
Just a small roster size. I think even at Pee Wees and Bantams though to continue it. I mean, the other day I think St. Cloud played St. Michael and Bantam AA. St. Cloud had 12 skaters on their team. That's somebody they put on their team. Now maybe their size of Bantams made them do that, but again, we always think you have to have this many. And if you don't, you're losing games because you have less than the other team. Don't worry about it. Just worry about how many times your kid touches the ice, how many times your kid got to touch the puck. So, and then with that said, just the ice touches. I mean, I think it was really interesting to hear, again, the ice availability, right? But how many times their mites get on the ice? Pretty regularly here in the cities, your mites touch the ice twice a week. Maybe some associations do 3. If they're doing more than that in an association, there's not many that do that. So to hear their mites get on the ice 4 times a week, again, their squirt's 5.5. You probably have some squirt teams that are only getting on the ice 4 days a week, maybe even less at some places. So just to hear those 2 things I thought was interesting, but I thought he was great to have on, a lot of information, a lot of knowledge, and hopefully somebody watching this picked up on something.
Yeah, it was awesome. Highly recommend, if you listen to this, spread it to your friends, because this is an important one if you're involved with especially young hockey players and you're involved in coaching and you're involved in a hockey association. So if you have any questions, we can get them to Judd on anything that we may have missed. Just email me at hockeyops@hockey.org, and we will see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Miles.
You bet.